Welcome, Janet Sawari. So this is an interview for the SAPIC conference that you're going to be part of the panel discussion. Let's quickly dig in. Please give me a quick 2-minute origin story. So basically, who are you, where do you come from, and kind of what makes you you?
Wow, origin story. My origin story is never short, but I think just 2 minutes. I'm Janet Sawari. I'm Malawian Zimbabwean. I studied in China, studied in Ukraine, Russia, found myself in Cape Town someday and decided to restart my venture here. My origin story probably has a lot to do with Cape AI, which is what brought me into the AI space again. And now we're on our way to building Africa's first deep tech research lab within the city of Cape Town.
Oh, amazing. What does it mean when you say Africa's first deep tech AI research lab?
Oh, wow. So that means moonshot type of research lab where we combine social impact with research, but using AI to extract value or try to solve real problems that people face, marginalized people face, and by applying tech to it. So, for example, how do we solve the gender-based violence problem or the security problem with AI? How do we do that using deep tech? It's a number of question. There's a number of solutions that can come up, but yeah, we pretty much try and find solutions around that, whether it's making a responsive bracelet, or whether it's coming up with a chip, or whether it's tracking human behavior using computer vision models. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds amazing and like super interesting technology to work on as well in the pursuit of then finding good solutions for the different issues that we face, as well as what can be done using AI. And then specifically then to the supply chain world, is there any practical uses you've seen of AI within the supply chain?
Absolutely. I think with any supply chain industry or facility, there's the logistics problem. That's one. And then two, it's arbitrage. It's being able to see where the nooks and crannies where, employees or people that are handling product could potentially, misuse resources, could undercut, organizations. There are ways to track, those type of misdemeanors within an organization or supply chain. Once again, using computer vision, which is what we specialize in, we have the ability to apply really sophisticated edge tech applications that can be able to, in real time, spot out or point out anomalies. Whether it's behavior or it's goods missing or it's goods being hidden in real time, we can be able to identify that.
Sure, amazing. And what do you expect to change in the near future? Is there anything new that you see where this progressing towards?
hmm I think in the near future, what I can talk about is how the future of AI is tiny. How we start looking more at the microchips, semiconductors, how we need to start looking more at hardware and not software exclusively, the edge tech space. So that's changing rapidly. And if we look at the global supply chain of hardware devices, there's going to be a rapid shortage of some sort because right now global dependency on edge tech hardware is more in East Asia, it's more in the Americas. So there is going to be a wave and there's going to be a huge demand on the African continent. And we are going to have to now process the resources we have and start producing our own hardware devices to accommodate that global demand. So that's a wave that's, if not already here, it's coming. It's going to be overnight.
You think like processing or building out different edge technologies in South Africa itself?
Not just South Africa, but the
In
entire African continent.
continent.
Because if you look at the way, things are today, we mobilize raw materials from the African continent to go overseas to be processed, then sold back to us, or processed, then implemented into hardware devices, then sold back to us as a product. whereas there's not enough supply overseas to accommodate the new wave of AI. You know, when we talk about the new wave of AI, we have more, processing capacity,
Yes.
that needs to be accommodated. The GPU power is much high and much more significant. So the current hardware devices we have on the market are not able to accommodate that. So where is all that capacity going to come from? It means hardware devices. And who's going to produce them? Can they, manage the demand, the global demand, not just for the African continent, but moreover. So we are in a really unique position as a continent. There's a huge opportunity that's looming and underway, where we can then be able to process raw materials, whether it's developing chips, whether it's developing the architecture for the chip, not necessarily just the chip itself. So yeah.
That would be amazing. It would cut, like you said, it would cut out a lot of this, I guess, the logistical supply chain of moving the raw materials, and it's a great arbitrage opportunity. And not to mention that I think by now there's enough people available that's clever enough that would be able to make this a reality and make this happen within the African context. And I mean, why not?
Yeah. And I mean, just to add to that point, besides the people or the talent being conducive enough to be able to, develop innovative technologies, we also now have technology that's conducive enough to be able to redevelop technology. So even using generative AI models, you can now be able to put out at least 100 to 1,000 different architecture models of a microchip without necessarily having to be a PhD professional. That should tell you something about the looming opportunity on the continent.
Oh, amazing. And then what are some of the top challenges that you have faced so far when it comes to AI, or the combination of the supply chain and AI?
Wow, I think the first one is vocabulary. Like the most basic thing I can say is vocabulary. When you get into a conversation with potential clients, potential stakeholders, or governance individuals, even funders, basic vocabulary that people should understand to be able to pass on information from one person to the other is completely lacking. Not only do people not understand what machine learning is, in most cases, they don't understand what AI is, they don't understand what regulation, how important regulation is, and they would not necessarily be interested because their vocabulary is not helping close the gap of need, so that understanding is not there. And then when you look at funding, as well, it's another big challenge on the continent. So when you look at who are the people that should be bringing the new solutions, the innovative solutions to the table, I believe they're the young people. It's Africa's youth, South Africa's youth. They are untapped niche markets that have great potential, to shift the economy. We talk about the township economies, for example. There's a supply chain demand there, there are challenges there, there are opportunities there, but they're not considered because of funding, because of vocabulary. There's a lot of mismatch, two separate worlds, and there's no bridge. And I believe if people just take time to understand a little bit more what the technology is, they'll be able to understand what it can do. So that bridge, before we talk about the tech, before we talk about, the economy, before we talk about load shedding, just the vocabulary, I think, is the most important thing that's missing.
The most challenging thing then within the AI space in terms of, I guess, other organizations understanding it and then making use of it and applying it in their worlds. And what would you say some of your top wins the past few months or years that you are really quite proud of that you'd like to share?
I think the first one, I think I have two top wins that I'm really proud of. The first one being, I think we're probably the first African company to start working on the type of tool, AI tool that we're working on. It's not easy, but it's wild and it's fun. It's bewildering, but it's fun. And then the second thing is we're building our lab regardless of all the challenges that are involved, you know. And for us, we see it as a huge commercial opportunity, but also an opportunity to introduce a new type of business model that can solve both social impact problems that, you know, other institutions cannot necessarily address because of the models that are out there. But it's also an opportunity for us to really push the boundaries of innovation, which is what we believe in more than just running a business. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Is there any specific company you're looking for that you think would be interested in what you guys are busy with and doing, and you would like to invite to come and visit or talk to you?
Absolutely. So at the stage that we're at, we're looking for companies that have really big problems that have to do with surveillance. So that could be anything that has to do with computer vision. So your ports, your cities, your industrial manufacturing companies, your mines, airports. That's where we have seen that our technologies is much more, you know, relevant. You know, even for the healthcare sector, we have applications for CT, eye, and MIR scan analysis. We can be able to do that autonomously, you know, over 1,000, 100, a lot of data sets for scans. And then if you look at mines, for example, mines are highly dependent on foremans or foremans. Security infrastructure as well. They need a lot of, you know, people walking around using their eyes to do menial work. So we can cancel that entirely and be able to optimize the role of a foreman, but then using technology. I always like to use the example of the action movies, you know, where there's like a Tom Hanks or something running around and they're looking for the criminal, and then they walk into a room and there's a control room and there's 100 screens, you know, and there's this one security guy and he now has to look at all those, you know, screens, and we cancel that immediately because we can train models to be smart enough to be able to look at all the screens and identify, you know, all the sentiment related use cases we want to extract information for.
If anything, what I'm thinking of here as well is it can augment the whole situation. So instead of having all these multiple screens, you can bring it up in front of the person and saying, listen, here's an issue, deal with this now. And the team can you know, dispatch and figure out what they need to do to sort it out.
Yeah, there's the location, that's exactly what we're actually working on right now.
Poor Tom Cruise will never be able to break in anymore.
No, it'll be on an app, you know. So if you look at things like that and you look at how does that potentially shape society as well, it's a whole different conversation we're going to have when it comes to legislation, when it comes to policies, ethics, governance, litigation. We'll probably get into a future where, you know, someone would walk into a courtroom and there's a digital file on you, and that's probably going to be looked at first, and then finally the human being will come in and kind of bring, you know, cause effect to the table as to what you may have done or not have done. So it's a whole new world that we're getting into, and I fortunately enough had the opportunity to live in that world for a certain period of time, which is China. I'll quickly give an example of something that happened to me in China. We jaywalked, my friend and I, in Shenzhen. And as soon as we got to the end of the road, 50 RMB came out of my WeChat wallet, because the entire time the cameras were picking up our movement and it identified me, tapped into my WeChat wallet, and took my 50 RMB as a fine. Yeah.
That's insane. I don't know if I like that. Because I mean, Stellenbosch, people walk across the street all the time.
You will be walking in a straight line.
Here's the first time that happens to me. I'll be like, I'm not doing this again.
And that was in 2019.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, we're in 2023. So if you think about, you know, when things get to that point in time, the entire landscape of technology, of society, of the economy, it changes rapidly. How people behave, how people interact, how people build tech, it's going to be different. And how we govern each other, it's going to change completely. So when I see that and I see where we are, there's a huge opportunity for technology companies to pull up their socks and try and catch up with the rest of the world, because it's inevitable. It's going to happen anyways.
Sure, that's fascinating. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing the story. And then good luck with the panel discussion coming up in a week or so's time, a few days' time, maybe, when this thing is. And thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you.